Amber, who sent you? Who sent you to be a part of this conversation? Who sent you to ruin the people in relationship? Amber, mind your business. Hey guys, welcome to and/or welcome back to my channel. We are back yet another week for another great review. Last week things were heated, so let's get straight into the review of episode 9 of season 4, Ready to Love, so we can talk about all the things that happened. So if you watched last week, you already know that we left off the episode with David and Liz going at each other, because we can't even call it a conversation, talking over each other, and then the episode ended. So this episode picks up from there, and we're still in the same situation with Liz literally trying to let him know that he is being eliminated. But he's just not allowing her to get the words out. And eventually he says, I have something to tell you, and it's something really important that I need to discuss. And she says, well, I'm trying to discuss something really important too. Then he says, well, you need to know that I just wanted to let you know first that I've eliminated myself. I've self-eliminated. So she was like, so then why didn't you tell me? And then we cut to her confessional, and she's saying to us, the audience, that really she just feels like he knows what's up, and he's basically doing a I'm gonna quit before you can fire me. And exactly right. I think that's exactly what was happening. And David just really showed his ass, okay? Doing the absolute most, and then says to her, well, I want to let you know what my reasons are for leaving. So then she says, well, no, she's still trying to tell him what she wants to tell him, the decision that the ladies made. And David is deliberately speaking over her. And every time she starts speaking, he starts talking louder and before her so that he doesn't have to hear, you have been eliminated. So eventually she's just like, David, like, really? You're not giving me a chance to speak. And then he starts to back away from her, literally leaving in the middle of the conversation. Oh, mind you, before this, after saying he's going to tell her what the reasons are, he actually tried to hug her. And so she backed up and she was just like, no. And he had the nerve to just be like, oh, okay, well, no problem. And that's when he just started to back up, and she's literally trying to have a conversation with him. He won't let it happen. And then he just leaves, guys. He literally walks away. And then the camera crew tries to catch up with him, because you know when someone's eliminated, there are normally like final remarks with the camera crew. David says no questions, no questions. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. But then apparently he changed his mind, because then there's a small clip of him saying, you know, he's ready for love, and he sees that Liz is ready for love, but he can see that something about the devil trying to take over, and so he's going to do it first. So like, I don't know, some sort of rubbish, because you know when these toxic Christians see things not going their way, suddenly God becomes involved. So he had some remarks about he's a man of God, ratatatata. I don't even know how that came in, because you are an ass, you are going to be eliminated, and that's all that it was. Leave God out of this. He has nothing to do with this situation. Yeah, guys, and that was the end of David. I mean, he left in a very, just a horrible way. Like, he wasn't willing to receive it with grace, is what I'm trying to say. He was very combative, very defensive, and ultimately very rude, because he still did not give Liz the opportunity to say what she needed to say. And just in case that wasn't enough, we had the continuation of Ron and Alexis's date, which we know at the end of last week's episode that we were seeing them simultaneously, Liz and David, Ron and Alexis. So we continue their date also once we see David leave, and it continues from the same conversation where Ron is like, oh, you can't offer me anything, and Alexis tells him, you see, well, you're being condescending. And so pretty much she wraps this up in a neat little bow and just says, well, you know what? The ladies came together and we, you know, deliberated, and the decision is that you're not ready to love. Oh my God. Ron also has zero grace, because rather than to just keep it cute and be like, all right, you know, I enjoyed the experience, and then just, you know, leave, Ron was like, oh, I thought you were smarter than that. I've lost respect for you. Just being all types of rude, things that you're just not supposed to say out loud. These are things you can think in your head, but really, and I'm no Alexis fan, but he was being very rude. So then she tells him, well, you see, that's a great example of what I was talking to you about. Like, you're very condescending, and there's just no way I would want to be with someone who thinks that this is an okay way to speak to me. Ron went all the way back to preschool and said, you know what? I was done with you anyway because I went out on a date with Amber last night and we kissed. And I was like, oh my God. Ron is showing us that his petty is like my petty is more than yours. It's all the way on 1,000. I was just like, really, Ron? Really? And I was a little bit disappointed in Alexis in terms of in the moment she did keep her grace. She didn't show that it bothered her. But in her confessional to us, the audience, she was very bothered by it. Oh, I wonder if this is true and why would like he's obviously doing it to get underneath your skin. He can't leave with any grace, so he's just like, I'm just gonna throw a bowling ball or a wrecking ball in everybody else's game. I thought she should have just done the adult thing and just ignored him completely. But she did keep it together on the actual date. She actually found it in her heart to hug him bye-bye and wish him well, because sir, if it were me and you spoke to me that way, I would not be hugging you goodbye. I'm just not that grown yet. I'm sorry. Rude. The next scene we see is in the gentleman's lounge, and Tommy is there with all the guys. And I mean, it's clear that we're down to the nitty gritty because it's only 4 guys left and 5 women. So Tommy tells them, you know what I'm gonna do is send you all on a ranch getaway. He's telling all the men this with their ladies, so that they can get a feel or a test of what it's like when they're going to be living together, I guess, by themselves. I don't know how that's gonna give you a feel because it's a whole bunch of y'all, but okay, I get what he's saying. So everyone gets there, everyone's having really good vibe. I mean, Vern is really happy. I'm gonna call her Vern because I don't really like the name Vernicia, but yeah, that's who that's who I mean. So Vern is having a good old time, laughing and kikiing it up with Joelle, and everyone seems really happy except for Alexis, who is just a total sourpuss. So in her confessional, she lets us know that this whole situation with Ron has been weighing on her heart, and she has been feeling some type of way because last night she needed to speak to AJ about her Ron experience and he wasn't there for her. I mean, I don't know if this guy just needs to write on a billboard sign that I'm genuinely not interested in you and keeping you around so I can stay in the game, because he has been making it so obvious. I think the only thing left for him to do is to create a sign and put it in flashing red lights, but he has been doing that just figuratively. But anyhow, and then aside from that, she's salty because of what Ron said about Amber. So she's so like, oh, I'm going to confront Amber today because la 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 la. And I'm just like, Alexis doesn't know how to compartmentalize. There's a time and place for everything. And no one likes someone who is constantly nagging about something. She always has a problem, you know, like, I mean, I understand you want to vent. I mean, that situation with Ron was a lot. But compartmentalize. He's gone. He no longer matters. Focus on who is there. So everyone's paired off and we're seeing all these wonderful little snippets of, like, there were a lot of cuts in the scene. So at one side we see Joelle and Vernicia playing pool. Then we see Amber and Chris over there being all lovey-dovey, enjoying each other's company, hugging and cheesing. And eventually the scene comes together and we see 3 ladies move aside. So we see Vern, we see Amber, and we see Kyra, and they sit down and they're having drinks. So a little girl talk starts, and then Kyra asks Vern, how are things going with Joelle? And I mean, unaware of everything that has been happening, she's just like, oh, I feel very secure, everything's going great, he makes me feel like I'm the only woman in the room, he's always making me laugh and smile, really just gushing. She sounds like someone who is completely in love. He overhears his name and says, oh, I hear my name in conversation. So he comes over. So when he comes over, Vernicia asks him directly, who is your number one? Who is your strongest connection? That was the question. So, you know, Joelle, well, you know, you and I have the strongest connection, baby. You know how he sounds already. So Amber's face is just like letting us know that something is not quite right. So cut to her confessional, and she's telling us that on her date with Ron, Ron told her that in the gentleman's lounge 2 weeks ago, Joelle picked Kyra as his number one when Tommy asked. So Amber says, I believe my girl Vern should be privy to this information. So I'm thinking, okay, Amber might tell her afterwards. Without any chill at all, Amber, right there and then in the middle of the people them conversation, Amber says, but wasn't Kyra your number one? Amber, who sent you? Who sent you to be a part of this conversation? Who sent you to ruin the people them relationship? Amber, mind your business. I was like, oh my damn, like really though? I'm no fan of what Joelle is doing, but I feel like when people are having their miscommunications in their relationship, it is imperative to mind your business. And especially the way she did it, like in the middle of the conversation. Anywho, I don't know, I felt like it was just a bit too much. I was just like, my God, you were sent to destroy. Stop. And she kept going. You would have thought she would have said that and excused herself. So he's caught off guard. Of course, he just ends up having to like come out with it, come out with the truth and say like what happened. And his whole excuse was it was during the time he and her had the miscommunication on the phone and they weren't getting along. And Vernicia was tight. I mean, as expected, she was really mad. So what happened is they started going back and forth and he was just like, oh, well, at least I told you. So Vernicia was like, oh, but you didn't tell me. Somebody else told me. And so he was like, well, I didn't think it was important to tell you. Here goes Amber. It was important. It was important. Get out. Leave the premises. I don't know how he didn't like rah 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 at her, because he would have been in his right to do so, because I felt like, okay, just empty all the salt in his game. She had no chill whatsoever. I was just like, no, Amber, no, don't do that. Mind your business. Don't do that. Anywho, so needless to say, him and Vernicia got into it, started going back and forth, arguing, and as awkward as it was, because all the women were there, so little by little, one by one, they all started to just move away because they got into like a full back and forth. And Amber was too much, man. So cut to the next scene and we see a cocktail truck comes up tooting. There's some drinks that they're promoting. Obviously it's their sponsor. I don't even remember the name of the drink, but the same lady, the mixologist, she comes and she's making drinks for everyone. So everyone's taking their time, one at a time, ordering their drinks so that they could go back inside. So when Vernicia gets to the front, she orders her drink, and of course here comes Joelle, hugging her, from behind, putting his arm around her neck. When you know you're wrong, you know you did something stank, so you're just trying to make up for it in like subtle ways. So yeah, he's definitely at that point right now. So everybody gets their drinks and all the ladies go off by themselves, all the guys go off by themselves, and the ladies sit down around a table and everybody starts sharing their little feelings about their guys and why they feel the way that they do. And so they were asking Kyra how she feels about the guys, because remember, she has Jason and AJ. And so she says she likes both of them for different reasons, but at this moment, even though she knows everybody wants to know what her decision is, especially since it seems like her decision would affect like how other people's relationships go, in really just Alexis, because Alexis wants AJ, but she says she's still undecided. And then we cut to the guys who are having a very similar conversation, and we have Jason who's just venting his feelings at the moment, to say that I guess he's a bit frustrated as well with Kyra, because he feels like when they're talking, she's not so, I guess it seems like she doesn't say the nicest things about AJ, or she makes him seem like he's not so ideal and he's the number one pick. But then he said like tomorrow will come and she will say things like, oh, but there's still a strong possibility that she could leave with AJ. So he's very tired of the back and forth, and AJ chimed in to say that he's feeling similar because verbally she's always saying Jason, but then she's still spending so much time with him and making it seem like there still is a possibility of them working out. So he's at the point now where he just needs her to be accountable and make a decision. So that's basically what those conversations were about. The next scene is the first date of the episode, and I must say there wasn't much revealed in this date. It kind of felt like a filler date. It was with Liz and Jason, AJ and Kyra, and nothing much happened. The ladies did express that they felt like they might be a bit uncomfortable just because, Kyra has interest in both AJ and Jason, so they were worried that it might be awkward. And AJ was just mainly worried that, he feels like he wants to know that Kyra sees that he's making an effort, and he's hoping that soon she'll be able to reciprocate that level of effort that he feels he's putting in. But because the date was horseback riding, and then they also had like an extra person, like an instructor or someone telling them how to ride the horse, so it was quite interactive. So there wasn't any like one-on-one talking or anything, so it's only the confessional commentary. And then at the end, basically everyone said they had a great time and it was like a nice break riding out into the sunset. Cut back to the house and we're seeing Vernicia and Joelle, and they're in the kitchen, and still he's trying to make up for what he said earlier, or what he didn't do, or what was revealed rather. And really she was just expressing how hurt she was by the whole thing, and she felt like what she deserved was an apology and for him to be more forthcoming about his feelings so that they can move forward. And I mean, I feel like that's an easy enough request because it's very clear that she likes him enough where she will overlook certain things to her own detriment because he's not interested. I still think he's not interested. And what makes me know that for sure, if I wasn't even sure before, was rather than to say, well, I hurt her, so I'm going to try and make up for it in his confessional to the audience, his whole basis for apologizing was, well, we're at the end of the road. It's time for, he's more concerned with the fact that the show is about to end. So all the couples are kind of solidified at this point. So he doesn't see himself having any wiggle room to move around. And for me, that's the only reason why he's pursuing her so hard and trying to apologize so profusely, because I don't think he gives two shits about her feelings at all. So the conversation gets deeper from there, and she says to him her main thing is she's having a very hard time understanding how he was willing to throw away everything that they have over one miscommunication. And he was just like, well, he was just being truthful at the time. And I mean, everything he said, she was just getting more and more upset because, to be honest, he really was making a case for himself. And then she gave him a chance to explain because she says, well, go ahead and tell me what you need to. Let me know how you're feeling. And he was like, nah, I'm good. So she was like, okay, well, you had a chance to explain yourself. And so she left the kitchen. She was so mad. I don't think we've seen anybody else on the show quite this upset for this season. She was really mad. And then she went outside and she started to vent to Chris and Amber. So of course, here comes Captain Chris trying to delegate and basically had to mansplain to Joelle why Vernicia was upset. And I don't know why it was so difficult for him to understand, because she was very clear with why she felt the way she felt. And it's as though it went over his head. So he only got it when a guy explained it to him. And then he was like, well, he definitely needs to fix it. He actually said, I need to smooth things over because Vern is the one right now. And the fact that he had to say right now, it makes it very obvious that he's really only doing this to smooth things over for the time being so he can still be in the game. That's what it seems like. Next, we see Liz and Jason, who are meeting by a gazebo by the lake. And I must say, when these two are together, they have a really nice rapport. So, I mean, that sounds very business-like, but what I mean is they're quite cute when they're together, very giggly. So she basically she got all comfortable and she asked him to rub her feet because earlier at the horse racing or horse riding date, the horse stepped on her foot. And he obliged. He was happy to do it. I feel like Jason is a pleaser in a relationship, like a giver. Not in a bad way, but he would be the type of guy that would be okay with like rubbing your feet, rubbing your back. that kind of thing. Anyway, and so they start to share their feelings for each other, and he lets her know that he appreciates that she's so comfortable around him, and he also loves the fact that she brings him peace. So when he's around her, he feels quite peaceful. And then she shared to him that she appreciates him for who he is, but also for his consistency. She loves that he's romantic and he's very consistent with his feelings for her. As you know, because there have been a lot of guys on this show where one minute they like you and the next minute they just don't want anything to do with you. And he was very appreciative and happy to hear that. I would like Liz and Jason if they were closer in age. And I mean, in retrospect, they're not that far apart. I think Liz is in her, I think if I'm not mistaken, she's like, I know she's about 40. Is she 44? I need to double check, but I know she's in her early 40s and he's in his late 30s, which is not the worst thing. But for some reason, I like their personalities, but I'm not seeing a match right here, because every time they're together, Liz looks like his aunt. Like, she gives me auntie vibes, and that looks like her nephew. They don't look like a couple. She looks like his senior. Not that she's so much older than him, but there's just something about their vibe that gives auntie nephew vibes. I don't get lovers vibe, but I could be wrong, because I mean, age is just a number for a lot of people. So let's see where this goes, because as of right now, their feelings seem to be very mutual. Cut to the game room, and everyone's in there eating, and Joelle is still trying to apologize to Vernicia, and I'm just like, Jesus, at this point, it's either we're going to accept or not. So thankfully, she ends up accepting his apology because he asked her for a chance to show that he's sorry. And then she lets him know that she's someone who doesn't hold on to things. She doesn't stay mad for long. But when she is mad, she's mad. So just give her her moment. And then afterwards, she'll calm down and all will be forgiven. And if he can understand that, they can move forward. So as of right now, she thinks everything's okay, or he feels at peace with everything how they are. But we know that this is a train to hell. But, you know, they're happy. So then we cut to Alexis and AJ, and here goes Alexis asking AJ, where were you last night? Because yesterday I was calling you and texting you. Remember, I said earlier she wanted to talk to him about the Ron situation. And dude's response was, oh, I saw the text late. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know any guy who likes me and I text them late and it's a problem. But, you know, okay, you saw the text late and I guess that means you just don't answer. I feel like that's rubbish. I don't know where we do that at, but okay. So in this situation, they start going back and forth, and he said a lot of things, but to sum it all up, basically AJ was just like, you complain too much and you're feeling the way you feel because of your past relationships and you're projecting that onto me, but it has nothing to do with me because I'm giving you as much attention as I can. That's basically what he said with a whole lot of words. And so she was just like, no, because you are inconsistent. I feel like one minute I feel very like adored and appreciated and you're all over me, and then the next minute you're just nowhere to be found. And she asked him, like, truthfully, since the last time we had the double date with Liz and Jason, like, what would you describe our communication as? And dude went all around the world with his answer, and I feel like this is a prime example of when someone knows they're doing you wrong, but then when you try to address it, they kind of do like a reverse psychology situation on you and make you feel like you're the problem. That's exactly what he was doing. As I said, I am no Alexis fan, but in this moment, I really wanted her to stick to her instincts, because her instincts are trying to let her know that something is not right here. And he's trying to convince her that she's being paranoid. She is not, and I am completely in agreement with her. In terms of, yeah, he is right. She does nag a bit much. She is a nagger. But if you do like someone as much as he is constantly saying he likes her and there's a strong connection, then you wouldn't be so wishy-washy. But really what it is I need to keep you there as long as I can until Kyra makes up her mind, just so I'm in this game. You're my security blanket. And I think that's exactly why he's so inconsistent. So when I need you to mention my name, I'm gonna do what I need to do, make sure that you have a reason to say you want to keep me. But when I'm feeling a bit more secure and there's no eliminations coming up and Kyra and I are on a good level, I don't really need to keep in touch with you. And unfortunately, that's exactly what is happening here. AJ is full of it. And Alexis is also just unwilling to see reality and very willing to take her interpretation of what she thinks things are for a reality. And it's sad, it's very sad to see. Like, he's making it very obvious that he's not interested. After all of that, everybody decides to come together. Once they're finished eating, they grab their drinks and they're all together in the game room, and they decide, okay guys, let's play a game. So the game that they decided on was truth or dare. And it starts off really simple with some simple childish dares, like somebody dared Chris to rub Amber's feet, and just like stupid stuff like that. Then eventually Kyra dares Joelle, or Vernicia rather, to kiss Joelle for 10 seconds. And when I tell you that the kiss looked, she was smiling, or you know when you seem to be enjoying something so your face looks like you're smiling in the middle of it. Joelle looks like when you were younger and your mom told you to eat the vegetables. Like, that's how his face looked while he was kissing her. He could not wait for those 10 seconds to be up. He did not move his mouth at all. Like, it was not an engaging kiss. It was kind of like, I'm just going to place my lip here and allow you to move your lip. And if you want to call it a kiss, you call it a kiss. Like, I don't know how much more obvious it could be that something is just not right, or that he's just no longer interested. It's just not signaling, it's not registering, and it's very awkward to watch. So after that dreadful kiss, Vern asked Jason who he's feeling the most between Kyra and Liz, and he decided to take a shot because he didn't want to, I guess, get into that discussion because they were both there. Everybody was there. And so of course Kyra was in her feelings, and she took that to mean that he's losing interest, or I guess his interest is shifting a little, because she says she's starting to see it in his actions, and now she's seeing it in the fact that in what he won't say. Because from where she's standing, even though she has interest in AJ, she pointed out that every time someone asks her who she feels the most, she always says Jason, and he was not doing the same. So he's torn, she's torn, everybody's torn. Nobody wants to make a decision on who they want to be with. And so after that, Alexis, I believe it was, asked Kyra how she felt about AJ. And basically she told all the reasons why she likes him, and then said the only problem that she would see there is that their communication doesn't work out sometimes. She doesn't feel like they have the best communication. I don't know why you would be torn if the other person that you like, you're having difficulties communicating with them, because I don't know, maybe communication is a big part of a relationship, but you know, that's just regular folks. So then things take a shift for the night, because Kyra asks Liz how did things go with the elimination with David, because he was to be eliminated, make no mistake. So she told them like how combative he was, and how she actually didn't even end up telling him, because he said he self-eliminated because he knew he was about to be sent home. Anyway, so we know that how that story goes already. Then I believe it was Vern asked Alexis how did things go with Ron. So this is where things went south, because she says, well, that was the most disrespectful conversation I've had in a long time, and then proceeds to call out Alexis with the whole situation that Ron had talked about earlier, and said that she was super hurt by it. And let me just say, karma works very, very quickly in this show, because earlier Alexis was all out in Joelle's business, airing out everything in front of Vernicia, and when Alexis called her out, she was like in her confessional, oh, you couldn't talk to me before we came here if you had a problem. I was just like, no, if you can dish it, you can take it. You were all up in people's gravy, now let's hear your business out in front of everybody. See how nice you like it. See how you like it. Though I must say, Alexis was tripping a little bit. I understood a little bit what she was talking about, because her whole thing was she and Amber are so close, and she said Amber not only gave her advice on what to do with Ron, but they also prayed together, because you know I guess they're both like very religious. And so I guess she felt betrayed, is what she said. She felt betrayed, and she's looking at Amber like Amber's a Judas. And I kind of feel like if they were like regular girlfriends, I would get it. But you met this girl on this show. Y'all have been on this show for maybe a couple weeks. How close could you be? You did not know her before. And apart from that, it's a competition. That's what we're here for. We're here to date multiple people. And why are we still talking about this person that is no longer on the show? It is what it is. She went on a date with him. She actually said, let me explain, but Alexis was talking so much, she actually did not get the chance to explain. And that's where the episode ended. So, what can we expect from next week's episode? Well, it starts off with Vernicia letting Joelle know that that was his last chance, don't mess up again. And of course, we see Alexis still going on Amber over her supposedly betrayal. We also see AJ, who is fakely having a dilemma about his decision to make between Kyra and Alexis. We know the truth, AJ. You can quit. And we also see Kyra and Jason finally having a much needed one-to-one discussing their indecisiveness. Because as we know, they're very indecisive together. And that wraps up everything that we needed to talk about for this week's episode, as well as everything that we can expect for next week's episode. And talk to me, guys, about who do you think should stay, who do you think should go. I mean, next week I'm looking forward to Joelle possibly leaving, as well as Alexis, because I feel like at this point there's no reason for her to be there, because we know AJ is not interested in her. And let me know what you think in the comments. So until next week, guys, stay tuned.